So Glenn, how did you get into astrology?
Well, probably like a lot of people, I just picked up a book on sun sign astrology. I think I was in the supermarket or something, and I came across an old book by Sidney Omar, one of the old time astrologers back in the 60s, and started reading up on my sun sign, and then eventually on the sun signs of friends and family members, and it was like a revelation. I got a clarity and an insight and an understanding into myself that was so confirming and so grounding and so helpful. It was almost like having a therapy session. So I was almost immediately sold on it because I intuitively recognized the validity of the personality profile that I was reading, even as simple as it was. And I'd be the first person today to say that sun sign astrology isn't particularly helpful, but I must say in my own experience, at that time in my life at least, it was very helpful and validating astrology. So at that point I started to branch out, one book after another. Didn't read a whole lot while I was in college because I didn't have time, but as soon as I got out of college I found myself in bookstores and gravitating to the astrology section and reading increasingly more sophisticated books on it. So I was actually reading a book on astrology as I was crossing the country from Connecticut to California. I was going out there at the time to write screenplays, so I thought. It turned out by the time I got to California, I was, although I didn't fully realize it, I was well on my way to becoming a professional astrologer. Even at that point, I was only 22. Well, I eventually went back to school after about 3 years in LA. I just kept reading, and I was doing more work in astrology and various other systems of philosophy and comparative religion, metaphysics, and I Ching, Tarot. I was studying a lot of things, but astrology was really the heart of it. So I was working somewhat professionally as an astrologer, even when I was about 24, 25, and I decided to go back to study psychology because I realized that the kind of problems that people were coming in with, I didn't feel really equipped to deal with just as an astrologer. And I wanted to get a little bit more grounding in counseling skills and understanding psychopathology, diagnosis, and developmental psychology, and so forth. So I was, from the start, however, blending and integrating astrology and psychology, even while I was in graduate school, pretty much out of the blocks.